The moonstone was never meant to glow. Rowan Vale knelt in the snow, staring at the light pooling in his trembling hands, wondering what he had done wrong. The woman beside him hadn't moved. Blood darkened the white ground near her temple, and the night pressed in close, silent and watching. Rowan didn't know pack law. He didn't know about forbidden signals. He only knew that when he touched the stone, it answered. Miles away, an Alpha King went still. Caelan Nightreign felt the call rip through his blood, sharp, unmistakable. Because only one thing could awaken a signal like that. And when he stepped from the shadows and saw the scene before him, the truth struck harder than any blade. Someone had used Alpha blood to beg for help. By dawn, the council would call it treason. But in that moment, it was only a youth trying to save a life. If this story has pulled you in so far, tap like and subscribe to help it reach more listeners. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? The moonstone was never meant to glow. Rowan Vale knelt in the snow, staring at the light pooling in his trembling hands, wondering what he had done wrong. The woman beside him hadn't moved in minutes. Blood darkened the white ground near her temple, and her breath came in shallow, broken gasps that scared him more than the silence would have. He'd found her collapsed just off the market road, half buried in snow that had already begun to claim her. He didn't know her name. But he knew the smell of her hair, lavender and wood smoke, and the way her voice softened when she told him stories about the moon. She'd given him the stone years ago. Keep it safe, she'd said. Just in case. Rowan didn't know what in case meant. Not until now. The stone had been cold and smooth in his pocket, a pretty rock he sometimes held when he couldn't sleep. But the moment his bloodied fingers closed around it, warmth flooded through his palm. The surface cracked with silver veins, and light spilled out like water breaking through ice. He gasped and nearly dropped it. The glow climbed into the air, twisting into shapes he couldn't name, and then pulled. Not from his hand, but from somewhere deeper. His chest. His bones. It felt like the stone was drinking something from him, something he didn't know he had to give. Then it shot skyward. A beam of pure moonlight tore through the clouds, visible for miles. Rowan's heart hammered. He didn't understand. The woman had said it was a keepsake, nothing more. But the light didn't lie. This was pack magic. The kind the elders used to call for counsel. The kind that only alphas were supposed to touch. He wasn't an alpha. He wasn't anything. The stone went dark in his hands, and the night pressed in again, silent, watching. Rowan shoved it back into his pocket and turned to the woman, his voice cracking. Please wake up. Please. She didn't answer. Panic clawed at his ribs. He'd done something, but he didn't know if it was enough. What if no one came? What if the wrong people came? What if she died because he didn't know what he was doing? Footsteps crunched through the snow behind him. Rowan spun, his whole body going rigid. A figure emerged from the trees, tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a cloak that seemed to drink the darkness. The moonlight caught on a circlet of black iron across his brow, and his eyes, cold amber unreadable, locked onto Rowan with the weight of a blade. The Alpha King. Caelan Nightreign stopped 3 paces away, his gaze moving from Rowan to the woman, then back again. His expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. Sharpened. When he spoke, his voice was low and edged with something Rowan couldn't name. Who sent the signal? Rowan's throat closed. He wanted to run. He wanted to explain. He wanted to disappear. Instead, he stayed exactly where he was, kneeling between the Alpha and the woman, and forced the words out. I did. Caelan's eyes narrowed. Then he stepped closer, and Rowan smelled it, the same scent that clung to the woman's hair. Faint, buried, undeniable. The Alpha King's expression cracked, just for a heartbeat. And Rowan realized, with cold certainty, that he had made a terrible mistake. Rowan had never seen the council chamber before. It was carved from black stone, lit by cold moonlight filtering through gaps in the vaulted ceiling. 12 thrones sat in a crescent, each occupied by an elder draped in silver and shadow. Their faces were ancient, unreadable, and they watched him the way wolves watched prey. He stood alone in the center of the room, hands bound behind his back. The guards had taken him at dawn, pulled him from the small room where Caelan had hidden him and Eloan. They hadn't explained. Hadn't answered his questions. They'd just brought him here. Elder Morvayn spoke first, his voice echoing off stone. Rowan Vale. You stand accused of unlawful use of pack magic. Treason against the Moon Council and the realm it governs. Do you understand the charge? Rowan's throat felt tight. I didn't know it was against the law. Ignorance is not innocence. Elder Treason leaned forward, her eyes sharp as glass. The signal you sent required alpha blood to activate. You are Omega-born. Unclaimed. Such magic should have rejected you. But it didn't, another elder murmured, suspicion thick in his tone. Morvayn raised a hand for silence. Tell us, child. Where did you acquire the signal stone? Rowan hesitated. If he told them about Eloan, would they hurt her? She was still unconscious, still healing. He couldn't answer. Morvayn's voice cracked like a whip. Someone gave it to me, Rowan said quietly. A long time ago. A name. I don't remember. It was a lie. A bad one. But it was all he had. Tasrin's lips thinned. You activated forbidden magic, sent a blood call that reached the Alpha King himself, and you expect us to believe you don't remember who gave you the means? I was trying to save her. The words burst out before Rowan could stop them. She was dying. I didn't know what else to do. Her. Morvayn's gaze sharpened. The woman you were found with. Who is she? Rowan's heart hammered. I don't know her name. Another lie. She's no one. Rowan's voice cracked. She was hurt. That's all. The elders exchanged glances. Something unspoken passed between them, something that made Rowan's skin crawl. Tasrin rose from her throne, descending the steps slowly. The signal you sent did not simply call for help, child. It carried a resonance. A bloodline signature. One that should not exist. She stopped a few paces away, studying him like he was a puzzle she needed to solve. You disrupted a council session. You forced the Alpha King to abandon protocol. And you did so using magic that requires a connection to royal blood. Her voice dropped. Tell me, Rowan Vale, do you know who your father is? The question hit him like a blow. Rowan stared at her, confusion and fear tangling in his chest. No. No one ever told me. How convenient. Morvayn stood, his expression carved from stone. The law is absolute. Unauthorized use of pack magic is treason. The penalty is the treason mark, exile from all territories, stripped of pack protection, branded so all may know your crime. Rowan's knees nearly buckled. I didn't mean to. Intent is irrelevant. Morvayn gestured, and a guard stepped forward holding a long iron rod, its tip glowing red. You will bear the mark. You will leave this territory by moonrise. And if you are found within our borders again, you will be executed. Tasrin finished the sentence coldly. Rowan couldn't breathe. His vision blurred at the edges. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. He'd just tried to help. He just wanted to save someone who'd been kind to him. Please, he whispered. Will she be okay? The woman. Just tell me if she'll live. The elders stared at him. Tasrin's expression flickered, something almost like surprise. You still ask about her? Morvayn's voice was edged with disdain. Even now? Yes. Rowan's voice was small but steady. I just want to know she's safe. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Tasrin turned away, ascending back to her throne. Proceed with the branding. The guard stepped forward. Rowan closed his eyes. And the chamber doors slammed open. The branding iron glowed white-hot in the elder's hand. Rowan stood in the center of the council chamber, wrists bound, trying not to shake. The hall was packed with witnesses, alphas from neighboring territories, their eyes cold and watchful. This wasn't a trial anymore. It was a message. Elder Morvayn stepped forward, iron raised. By the authority of the Moon Council, you will bear the treason mark. May it remind you. No. The word cut through the chamber like a blade. Every head turned. Caelan Nightreign stood in the doorway, still dressed in travel-worn armor, snow melting from his shoulders. He looked like he'd ridden through the night without stopping. His eyes burned with something the council hadn't seen in decades. Defiance. Morvaine's expression hardened. Alpha King, you overstep. The boy has confessed. The boy saved a life. Caelan walked forward, each step deliberate. He used a signal stone in an act of mercy. If that is treason, then your laws are broken. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several alphas shifted, uneasy. Elder Tasrin rose from her seat. The law is clear. Unauthorized use of pack magic destabilizes the realm. We cannot make exceptions. Then I invoke the right of claiming. Caelan's voice rang out, formal and absolute. Under Moon Law, an alpha may take responsibility for any signal answered by their blood. The crime becomes mine, not his. The chamber went deathly silent. Rowan's breath caught. He didn't understand the words, but he felt their weight, the way the air seemed to compress, the way the elders' faces went pale. Morvaine's knuckles whitened around the branding iron. You would stake your crown on a nameless Omega child? I would stake it on the truth. Caelan stopped directly between Rowan and the council. This boy carries alpha blood. The signal recognized him because I recognized him. He is mine to protect. Yours. Tasrin's voice sharpened. You have no heir. No claimed child. This is a lie you've upheld for 13 years. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Caelan turned to face the full council, his voice dropping to something low and lethal. You told me the child died. You told me Eloan Ashmere fled in disgrace. But I found her bleeding in the snow, poisoned with wolfsbane, and this boy, my son, trying to save her life with the only tool she'd given him. Gasps erupted. The alphas in the gallery leaned forward, hungry for truth. Morvaine slammed his staff against the stone floor. You have no proof. I have his blood. Caelan gestured to Rowan without breaking eye contact with the council. I have the signal stone. I have Eloan Ashmere, alive, recovering in my personal guard's care. And I have 13 years of questions you will answer. Tasrin's jaw tightened. If you claim him, you fracture the realm. Other packs will see this as weakness. They will challenge. Let them. Caelan's voice was iron. I will not burn a child for your comfort. Rowan felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been tightly closed since the moment the guards dragged him into this hall. The Alpha King wasn't just refusing the brand. He was claiming him. Elder Morvaine's face twisted with barely restrained fury. You invite war, Nightreign. The prophecy. The prophecy is a tool you've used to control bloodlines for generations. Caelan stepped closer, towering over the elder. I'm done pretending it's holy. This ends now. The council exchanged glances. Calculation. Fear. Finally, Tasrin spoke, her voice like winter wind. If you take the boy under your protection, you dissolve your treaty with the Eastern Pacts. You risk civil war. And if you are wrong, if this child brings ruin as foretold, it will be your name that history condemns. Caelan didn't hesitate. He turned, walked to Rowan, and with one swift motion, snapped the binding cords on the boy's wrists. Then he placed a hand on Rowan's shoulder, firm, grounding, unmistakable. Then let history remember, Caelan said quietly, his eyes never leaving the council, that I chose my son. The chamber erupted. And somewhere deep in the mountains, the first howl of rebellion echoed through the night. Eloan woke to the smell of pine smoke and iron. Her body screamed in protest as she tried to sit up, but strong hands pressed gently against her shoulders, easing her back down. Don't move. The wolfsbane is still working its way out. She knew that voice. Her eyes snapped open, and the world came into focus. Stone walls, heavy furs, the flicker of firelight. And standing over her, features harder than she remembered but unmistakable, was Caelan Nightreign. Terror flooded her veins. No, she tried to push away to run, but her body betrayed her. Weak. Poisoned. Trapped. Caelan didn't move. You're safe, Eloan. Safe. Her laugh was brittle, edged with panic. You don't understand. They'll kill him. They'll kill both of us if you. They've already tried. His voice was quiet, devastatingly calm. The council branded you a traitor 13 years ago. They told me you fled. That the child, he stopped, jaw tightening. That our child didn't survive. Eloan went still. The silence between them was sharp enough to draw blood. Where is he? She whispered. Sleeping. In the next room. Caelan crouched beside the low bed, bringing himself to her level. He used your signal stone. Called me through a blood bond I didn't know existed. And when I arrived, I found him kneeling in the snow, refusing to leave your side even when I ordered him to run. Her breath hitched. He shouldn't have. The signal was only for emergencies. I never thought. He saved your life. Caelan's gaze was unflinching. And the council tried to brand him a traitor for it. Eloan's heart stopped. No. No, you didn't let them. I claimed him. The words were low, final. Publicly. In front of the entire assembly. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You fool. You've destroyed everything. I've destroyed their lies. Caelan's voice hardened. They erased you. Hid him. Told me my son was dead. Why? Eloan turned her face away. Because of what he is. Alpha-born. More than that. She forced herself to meet his eyes. The prophecy, Caelan. The one the council has spent centuries trying to control. It names a child of two bloodlines, one who can unite or fracture the realm depending on who claims him first. Caelan's expression darkened. They feared he would challenge them. They feared he would replace them. Eloan's voice was bitter. A child with alpha blood strong enough to activate pack magic before he even understands what he is. They couldn't allow it. So they staged my exile, told you I'd lost the baby, and tried to bury us both. But you survived. Barely. She closed her eyes, exhausted. I've been running for 13 years. Keeping him hidden. Teaching him to be small, quiet, unremarkable. And it worked, until someone found us. Poisoned me. Left me to die where Rowan would find me. Caelan's hands curled into fists. Who? I don't know. But they carried council marks. Eloan's voice dropped to a whisper. They wanted him to watch me die. To break him. Make him easy to control or dispose of. The fire crackled in the silence. Finally, Caelan spoke. He asked about you. Even when they were about to brand him. Even when he could have lied to save himself. He asked if you were safe. Eloan's composure cracked. A single tear slipped free. He doesn't know, she said hoarsely. About you. About what he is. I kept him innocent on purpose. It was supposed to protect him. It nearly got him killed. And now you've painted a target on both your backs. Eloan's voice sharpened with desperation. The council won't stop. They'll call it rebellion. Fracture the packs. Force the other alphas to choose sides. Let them choose. Caelan stood, his silhouette imposing against the firelight. I've spent my life upholding their laws. Following their prophecies. Trusting their wisdom. And all it earned me was 13 years of grief for a son who was alive. He turned back to her, and for the first time, she saw the full weight of his fury. They stole him from me, Eloan. They stole us. I will not let them take him again. Before she could respond, a soft sound came from the doorway. Rowan stood there, half-shadowed, eyes wide and uncertain. You're awake, he breathed, relief flooding his face. Then his gaze flickered between them, searching, confused, trying to understand why the Alpha King and the woman who'd raised him were looking at each other like the world had just shattered. Eloan reached out a trembling hand. Rowan, she whispered. We need to talk. Rowan sat on the floor between them, hands clasped tight in his lap. Eloan had insisted on sitting up despite the pain, and Caelan stood by the window, watching the mountain passes. Ready for war. I don't understand, Rowan said quietly. Why would the council want to hurt you? Eloan reached for his hand. Her fingers were still cold, but her grip was steady. Because I loved someone I wasn't supposed to. And because you exist. Rowan looked between them, confusion written across his face. Caelan turned from the window. When he spoke, his voice was gentler than Rowan had ever heard it. 13 years ago, Eloan and I were bound as mates. Chosen, not arranged. The council allowed it, barely, but they demanded conditions. They wanted to control the bloodline, Eloan continued softly. Any child born from an Alpha King carries immense power. The council wanted assurance that power would serve them. But I'm nobody, Rowan whispered. I'm Omega-born. You said. I lied. Eloan's voice cracked. To protect you. You were never Omega, Rowan. You're Alpha-born. From both lines. The words hung in the air like smoke. Rowan stared at her, then at Caelan, his mind racing to catch up. Both? Caelan crossed the room and knelt in front of him. This close, Rowan could see the resemblance he'd never known to look for. The shape of his jaw, the amber flecks in his eyes, the way his hands moved. I'm your father, Caelan said quietly. And they took you from me before I ever held you. Rowan's breath came shallow fast. But you said the child died. You told her. They told me that. Caelan's expression was raw. The council delivered the news personally. Said the birth went wrong. That Eloan fled in grief and couldn't face me. I mourned you both. Eloan's voice was barely a whisper. They came for me the night you were born. Said you were too dangerous. That the prophecy couldn't be allowed to unfold. What prophecy? Rowan's voice rose, edged with panic. One that speaks of a child with the strength to reshape pack law, Caelan said. To either unite the realm or destroy it. The council has used it for generations to justify controlling bloodlines, eliminating threats, maintaining power. And they thought you were that threat, Eloan finished. So they erased you. Rowan pulled his hand free, stumbling to his feet. His whole body trembled. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to save you. I didn't. I know. Caelan stood slowly, giving him space. You acted out of love. That's why they fear you. I'm not powerful. Rowan's voice broke. I can't even shift properly. I don't know how to fight. I'm just. You activated a blood call that reached me across half the kingdom. Caelan's voice was firm, grounding. You did what trained wolves twice your age couldn't do. The power is there, Rowan. You've just never been taught to use it. A knock shattered the moment. One of Caelan's guards entered, face grim. My lord. A messenger from the council. They've called an emergency session. Caelan's jaw tightened. Let them wait. They're not requesting your presence, Alpha King. The guard's voice dropped. They're voting on an execution order. Ice flooded Rowan's veins. Eloan gripped the bedframe, pulling herself upright despite Caelan's warning gesture. For who? The guard's eyes flicked to Rowan, then away. The boy. And anyone who shelters him. Silence crashed down like a hammer. Caelan's voice went deadly quiet. On what grounds? Bloodline corruption. Unauthorized existence. Fulfillment of forbidden prophecy. The guard hesitated. They're calling it an act of mercy. Preventing future war. Mercy. Caelan's laugh was cold as winter stone. They're terrified. They're mobilizing support, the guard continued. 3 packs have already pledged allegiance to the council's decision. Others are watching. Rowan felt the room tilt. This was his fault. All of it. If he'd just left the stone alone, if he'd let Eloan. No. Caelan's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. Don't. Rowan looked up, tears blurring his vision. Caelan stepped closer, placing both hands on his shoulders. You are not a mistake. You are not a crime. You are my son, and I will not let them erase you again. But they'll kill you too. Then they'll have to get through me first. Caelan's grip tightened, fierce and protective. And I promise you, Rowan, they won't. Eloan moved to stand beside them, still unsteady but resolute. If they want war, we'll give them truth instead. Caelan met her eyes, and something passed between them, old partnership, renewed purpose. He turned back to the guard. Send word to the allied packs. Tell them the Alpha King calls for assembly under moon law. Full testimony. No council veto. The guard's eyes widened. That hasn't been invoked in 2 centuries. I know. Caelan's smile was sharp. But it's still binding. And if they refuse, they admit they're afraid of what we'll say. As the guard hurried out, Rowan found his voice again. Small, but steady. What happens at an assembly? Caelan looked down at him, and for the first time, Rowan saw something other than the ruthless Alpha King. He saw his father. We tell them everything, Caelan said quietly. And we let the realm decide who the real traitors are. The assembly ground was carved into the mountainside, open to the sky and moon. Hundreds of wolves gathered in the stone amphitheater. Alphas, elders, pack representatives from every territory. They lined the terraced levels, eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Watching. Judging. Rowan stood in the center, alone under the full moon's light. The council sat elevated on their platform, 12 faces carved from ice. Elder Morvain's voice rang out across the assembly. Rowan Vale. You stand accused of bloodline corruption, unauthorized use of sacred magic, and fulfilling forbidden prophecy. The penalty is death. How do you answer? Rowan's hands trembled, but he kept his voice steady. I didn't know about any prophecy. I just wanted to save someone. Ignorance does not absolve. Let him speak. Caelan's command cut through the ritual. He stood at the edge of the circle, Eloan beside him, both formally dressed in ceremonial armor. You invoked moon law. Under its terms, the accused may testify fully before judgment. Morvain's jaw tightened, but he couldn't refuse. Proceed. Rowan swallowed hard. Every eye in the amphitheater was on him. He'd never spoken in front of more than a handful of people before, and now hundreds waited for his words. I found her dying, he began quietly. The woman who raised me, who taught me to read, who gave me food when I had none, who, his voice caught, who told me stories when I couldn't sleep. She was an exile, Tasrin interrupted coldly. Condemned by law. She was kind. Rowan met her gaze. That's all I knew. And when I found her bleeding in the snow, I didn't think about laws or magic or prophecies. I couldn't let her die. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The signal stone activated because you carry alpha blood, Morvain pressed. Blood that should not exist. I didn't know that. Rowan's voice rose slightly. I didn't know who my father was. I didn't know why the stone worked. I just knew someone needed help, and I had something that might bring it. And in doing so, you disrupted council proceedings, forced the Alpha King to abandon protocol. He saved a life the council tried to end. Caelan's voice was steel. And you're punishing him for having compassion. The crowd murmured louder now, some nodding. Elder Tasrin stood. The boy is dangerous. The prophecy names him as a child who can unite or fracture the realm, Caelan interrupted. Depending on who claims him. You tried to eliminate that choice by erasing him. By lying to me. By condemning Eloan to exile and leaving my son to grow up alone. Gasps echoed across the amphitheater. That is not, Morvain began. We have proof. Eloan stepped forward, her voice clear despite her injuries. Birth records you falsified. Exile orders dated the night of his birth. Testimony from the healer who delivered him, who you paid to stay silent. She produced a scroll, its seal unbroken. She kept copies, just in case. The council's composure cracked. Elders exchanged panicked glances. Caelan pressed forward. You told me my son was dead. You built an execution order on lies. And now you ask this assembly to condone murder because you fear a 13-year-old child who used forbidden magic to save his mother. The crowd was no longer whispering. Voices rose in argument, challenge, question. Morvain slammed his staff down. The prophecy is a tool you've used to control bloodlines for generations. Caelan's roar silenced the amphitheater. Well, I'm done being controlled. He walked into the circle, standing beside Rowan. I invoke the blood challenge. The assembly went deathly silent. Even the council looked shaken. Tasrin's voice was barely a whisper. You cannot. Moon law permits it. Caelan's eyes blazed. When an alpha's bloodline is accused of corruption, they may challenge the accuser directly. Truth-binding under moonlight. No lies. No deception. Only what is. Morvain's face went pale. The blood challenge has not been used in 237 years. I know. Caelan's smile was predatory. But it's still law. And you invoked moon law when you called this assembly. He turned to face the council fully. So I challenge you, Elder Morvain. Submit to truth-binding and answer before this assembly. Did you falsify records? Did you order Eloan's exile to hide my son? Did you attempt to murder her to keep him vulnerable? Morvain's hands shook on his staff. The moon above seemed to pulse, ancient and waiting. Morvain's voice cracked. The council decided. Answer the challenge or forfeit your seat. Caelan's voice was absolute. The silence stretched like a blade. Finally, Morvain's shoulders sagged. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. Yes. The word fell like thunder. The assembly erupted. Alphas surged to their feet, shouting. Pack representatives demanded answers. The carefully maintained order of centuries shattered in a single breath. Rowan stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Caelan placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him in the chaos. It's over, he said quietly. They can't hide anymore. But as Rowan looked up at the council, at the fury and fear twisting their faces, he realized something else. The real fight was just beginning. The moon burned brighter. Morvain tried to stand to retreat, but his legs wouldn't move. The truth-binding held him frozen, silver light crawling up his arms like vines. Ancient magic didn't release liars easily. Explain. Caelan's voice was quiet, deadly. All of it. The amphitheater had gone silent again, every wolf leaning forward to hear. Morvain's face twisted with rage and resignation. When the words came, they were forced, dragged out by magic older than the council itself. The prophecy spoke of a child born of two royal lines. One who could command alpha blood without ritual. Without permission. His voice shook. We couldn't allow it. Why? An alpha from the Eastern Pack called out. What threat does a child pose? Control. Elder Tasrin spoke now, her composure finally cracking. For centuries, the council has maintained order through careful bloodline management. We decide which alphas breed. Which children inherit power. Which packs rise or fall. Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. A child like Rowan, Tasrin's eyes fixed on him with something between fear and hatred, could bypass all of it. His blood signature is strong enough to activate pack magic instinctively. To call wolves without ritual. To unite packs without council approval. He could replace you, Caelan said flatly. Yes. The word was barely a whisper. Another elder, Cael, spoke, his voice thin with desperation. We preserved order. Prevented war. The realm has been stable for. Stable. Eloan's voice cut like a blade. She stepped forward, pulling back her collar to expose the spiral scars on her collarbone. You burned me. Exiled me. Left me to raise a child alone in hiding while you told his father he was dead. You call that stability? We did what was necessary, Morvain ground out, still fighting the truth-binding. No. Caelan moved closer to the council platform. You did what was convenient. You sacrificed my family to maintain power. And when that wasn't enough, you tried to murder Eloan to keep Rowan vulnerable. We sent no assassins, Treason began.
Liar.
A new voice rang out. A figure emerged from the crowd, an older woman in healer's robes. She climbed to the center of the amphitheater, her face weathered but resolute. I am Myril, midwife of the Northern Pack. I delivered Rowan Vale 13 years ago. She turned to face the council. And I watched you pay 3 wolves marked with council seals to hunt Eloan Ashmere last winter. The amphitheater exploded with noise. Myril raised her voice above the chaos. They came to me for Wolfsbane. Said it was for a rogue who'd broken exile terms. But I recognized one of them, Elder Cael's personal guard. Cael lurched to his feet. That is a baseless. The truth binding flared, silver light arcing toward him. He gasped, stumbling. The binding recognizes deception. Caelan's voice was stone. Interesting. Myril continued, I followed them. Saw them poison her water supply, then leave her in the snow to die. They wanted it to look natural. An exile who simply didn't survive winter. She turned to Rowan, her expression softening. You saved her life, child. With courage the council will never possess. Rowan couldn't speak. His throat was too tight, his heart pounding too hard. The Eastern Pack Alpha stood. If the council has falsified bloodlines, ordered assassinations, and manipulated succession, how many others have been erased? Others rose, voices overlapping. My cousin disappeared after challenging pack law. They said my uncle went rogue, but he opposed council decisions. The Western heir died under suspicious circumstances. The council's power didn't crack. It shattered. Caelan watched it happen with cold satisfaction. Then he turned to Morvain, still frozen by magic and truth. One more question, Elder. Did you fear the prophecy? Or did you fear what would happen when someone finally questioned your authority? Morvain's face contorted. The binding forced the words out. Both. The prophecy named a child who would see through deception, who would demand truth over tradition, who would unite wolves through compassion rather than law. His voice dropped to a rasp. We couldn't allow the realm to realize they didn't need us. The admission hung in the air like smoke. Caelan stepped back, addressing the assembly. You've heard the council's own words. They've ruled through lies, manipulation, and murder. They've eliminated threats to their power and called it prophecy. He looked at Rowan, then at the hundreds of faces watching. I say their rule is finished. The roar that answered him shook the mountainside. Alphas howled. Pack representatives stamped their feet. The sound built and built until it felt like the earth itself was rejecting the council's authority. Only Treason remained standing, her face pale but defiant. You would replace us with what? Chaos? A child king? You have no alternative. I have truth. Caelan's voice cut through the noise. And I have a son who chose mercy over law when it mattered most. That's more than you've offered in centuries. He turned to Rowan, extending his hand. The choice is yours. You can walk away from this. Live quietly. I'll make sure you're protected. Rowan stared at the offered hand, then at the assembly, hundreds of wolves who'd watched him be accused, defended, and vindicated. He thought of Eloan, bleeding in the snow. Of the signal stone glowing in his hands. Of standing alone in the council chamber, asking only if she would live. He took his father's hand. I want to help, he said quietly. However I can. Caelan's grip tightened, fierce and proud. Then he raised their joined hands to the moon, and the assembly howled their approval into the night. The council chamber was stripped of its grandeur. The 12 thrones sat empty, their occupants confined under guard pending formal judgment. Pack representatives from every territory crowded the space that had once been forbidden to all but elders. Everything had changed in 3 days. The Eastern Pack Alpha, Theron, stood before Caelan now, his expression grave. Around them, other Alphas waited, some supportive, others wary, all watching. The council is finished, Theron said bluntly. Their authority is broken. The packs are fractured without leadership. He paused. You could unite them. Take full governance. No one would challenge you after what you've exposed. Caelan stood at the window, looking out at the mountains. Rowan sat nearby, quiet and observant as always, with Eloan standing protectively beside him. You're offering me absolute power, Caelan said slowly. We're offering stability. Another Alpha, Caelan, spoke from the back. The realm needs a strong hand. The council proved what happens when power is divided and corrupted. One Alpha King, unchallengeable, could prevent that. And what prevents that king from becoming what the council was? Eloan's voice was sharp. You'd trade 12 tyrants for one? The Alpha King has proven himself honorable. Today. Caelan turned from the window. I've proven myself honorable today. What about in 10 years? 20? When I'm comfortable and the memories of this moment have faded. Uncomfortable silence filled the room. Rowan watched his father carefully. He'd learned to read the tension in Caelan's shoulders, the way his voice dropped when he was working through something difficult. What about the elders? Theron pressed. Justice must be served. They'll face trial. True trial, with representatives from every pack. Caelan's voice was firm. Their crimes will be documented. Bloodlines they destroyed will be acknowledged. But I won't execute them. Shocked murmurs rippled through the room. They ordered assassinations, Caelan began. And if I kill them, I become exactly what they feared. Caelan's gaze swept the room. A ruler who eliminates opposition. Who decides life and death based on convenience rather than justice. Then what do you propose? Theron asked. Caelan was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Rowan. What do you think should happen? Every head turned toward the boy. Rowan's eyes widened. I'm not. You started this. Caelan's voice was gentle but firm. You used forbidden magic to save a life. You stood trial for compassion. You asked me once if she would be safe, even when they were about to brand you. So I'm asking you, what kind of realm do you want to live in? Rowan's hands clasped together, his mind racing. He thought of the council chamber, cold and imposing. Of Elder Morvane's voice pronouncing judgment without ever asking why. Of rules that protected power instead of people. I think, his voice was small at first, then grew steadier. I think we need laws that help, not hurt. Laws that anyone can use if they're in danger, not just elders and alphas. The signal stones, Eloan murmured, understanding. Yes. Rowan looked up at his father. You said I activated it because of alpha blood. But what if we made ones that anyone could use? Not for war or politics. Just, if someone needs help. Real help. The room was silent. Then Theron laughed, surprised and approving. Out of the mouths of children. Caelan's expression softened with pride. A signal for the vulnerable. For those the law has failed. He turned back to the assembled alphas. That's what I propose. Not absolute rule, but shared responsibility. How? Caelan asked skeptically. A council, yes. But not of elders chosen for power. Caelan began pacing, ideas forming. Representatives from every pack, rotating every 5 years. Decisions require majority vote. And any wolf, regardless of rank, can call for assembly if they believe injustice has occurred. That's chaos, someone muttered. That's accountability, Caelan countered. The council fell because no one could question them. This way, no single group holds permanent power. And the prophecy? Theron asked quietly, glancing at Rowan. The child who can unite or fracture the realm? Caelan moved to stand beside his son, placing a hand on his shoulder. The prophecy assumed he'd be claimed by ambition, that someone would use him as a weapon. His voice grew fierce. I claim him as my son, not as a tool, not as a threat, as a child who deserves to grow up without carrying the weight of your fears. He addressed the room with absolute conviction. Rowan will not be king. He will not be crowned or paraded or used. He will be taught, protected, and allowed to choose his own path when he's old enough to understand what it means. And if he chooses power, someone challenged, then we'll have built a system that can question even him. Caelan's smile was thin. That's the point. The Alphas exchanged glances, uncertainty giving way to cautious hope. Finally, Theron stepped forward. I'll support the new structure. On one condition. Name it. The boy creates the first new signal stone. Let him show us how compassion can be codified into law. Caelan looked down at Rowan. What do you say? Rowan's heart pounded. He wasn't ready for this. Wasn't trained. Wasn't. Then he felt it. The same pull he'd felt that night in the snow. Not from the stone in his pocket, but from somewhere deeper. Blood recognizing need. Power recognizing purpose. I'll try, he whispered. Eloan knelt beside him. I'll help you. We'll do it together. Caelan nodded to Theron. Then we have an agreement. As the Alphas filed out, already arguing details and protocols, Rowan stayed seated. His mind was spinning with everything that had happened, everything that would come. Caelan sat beside him, the Alpha King suddenly just a father. You know you don't have to do any of this, he said quietly. I meant what I said. You can walk away. Rowan shook his head. Someone else might need help someday. Like I did. He looked up at Caelan, eyes bright with determination. I want to make sure they can ask for it. For a moment, Caelan couldn't speak. Then he pulled Rowan into an embrace, fierce, protective, achingly gentle. And in the mountains beyond, as if the realm itself felt the shift, the moon broke through the clouds. Somewhere in the valley, a wolf howled. Then another. And another. Until the night rang with the sound of something new beginning. 6 months later, Rowan stood at the edge of the training grounds, watching younger wolves practice their forms. He'd grown taller, his shoulders broader, but he still moved with that same quiet watchfulness, observing before acting, thinking before speaking. You're doing it again, Eloan said, approaching with 2 cups of tea. Doing what? Standing apart. You're allowed to join them, you know. Rowan accepted the tea, wrapping his hands around its warmth. I know. He paused. I like watching them learn. Seeing them get it right. Eloan smiled. She'd healed fully, the scars on her collarbone now worn openly rather than hidden. The new council had formally pardoned her, restored her name, offered her a seat among the representatives. She'd declined. Said she'd spent enough time in politics. Now she taught history, the real kind and censored, to young wolves who deserved to know what had been hidden from them. Your father's looking for you, she said. Something about the northern border. Rowan nodded, already moving. Over the past months, he'd learned to navigate the strange space between being Caelan's son and being just Rowan. Not a prince. Not an heir. Just a boy learning what his blood could do when used with intention. He found Caelan in the map room, surrounded by representatives from the new council. They looked up when he entered, their expressions respectful but not reverent. That had been Caelan's one unbreakable rule: Rowan would not be worshipped. Would not be placed above question. The signal network is complete, Caelan said without preamble. Every pack territory now has access to the stones. Your design worked. Pride flickered in Rowan's chest. It had taken months of work with Eloan, experimenting with different combinations of magic and intent. The new signal stones didn't require alpha blood. They responded to genuine need, to desperation, to the specific frequency of fear and hope combined. Anyone could use them. Child or elder. Omega or alpha. And they'd been tested extensively to ensure they couldn't be weaponized or abused. That's good, Rowan said quietly. There's more. One of the representatives, a woman named Kira, gestured to the map. We've already had 3 activations. All legitimate. Lost children, a hunting accident, a packmate trapped in a collapsed den. Response times were immediate. And the council? Rowan asked carefully. The new council, democratically chosen, still finding its footing. No interference. Kira's smile was genuine. They're working exactly as intended. Help for those who need it, with no politics attached. Caelan met Rowan's eyes. You did this. You built something that's already saved lives. Before Rowan could respond, a sound cut through the room. Not a voice. Not a howl. A pull. Rowan gasped, hand flying to his chest. It felt like that night in the snow, like something was reaching through his blood, calling him. Rowan. Eloan was at his side instantly. The signal. His voice was strained. Someone's, I can feel it. Caelan was already moving to the window. In the distance, a beam of silver light pierced the evening sky, originating from the eastern valley. That's Pack territory, Kira said, checking the map. Small settlement. Mostly families. Rowan was already heading for the door. Wait, Caelan called after him. Someone needs help. Rowan looked back, and for a moment, Caelan saw not his 13-year-old son but the boy who'd knelt in the snow refusing to leave Eloan's side. I have to go. Then I'm coming with you. They rode fast, Eloan and 2 guards following. The signal's pull grew stronger, more urgent. Rowan could almost taste the fear in it, young, confused, desperate. They found the source in a clearing near the river. A girl, no more than 10, knelt beside an older wolf who wasn't moving. Her hands glowed with silver light, wrapped around a signal stone identical to the one Rowan had once used. She looked up when they arrived, tears streaming down her face. Please, she sobbed. My grandfather, he won't wake up. Rowan dismounted before his horse had fully stopped. He approached slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. It's okay, he said softly. You did the right thing. Help is here. Eloan moved past him immediately, kneeling beside the old wolf to assess his condition. Heart event. Recent. He's stable but needs care. The girl stared at Rowan, recognition dawning through her panic. You're the boy from the stories. The one who made the stones. Rowan knelt beside her. What's your name? Mira. Mira, you were very brave. The signal brought us here, and now we can help. He gestured to his mother. She's a healer. One of the best. Will he, Mira's voice cracked. Will he die? Rowan remembered asking that same question. Remembered the terror of not knowing. Of being helpless. He took her hand gently. Not today. You made sure of that. As Eloan and the guards carefully moved the old wolf onto a stretcher, Caelan approached. He placed a hand on Rowan's shoulder, brief, proud grounding. Mira watched them with wide eyes. They said you changed the laws. That anyone can call for help now. Not just me. Rowan helped her to her feet. A lot of people wanted things to be different. I was lucky enough to be in a position to help make it happen. Can I, she hesitated. Can I help too? When I'm older? Rowan smiled. The first real, unguarded smile he'd given in months. Yeah. You can help. As they rode back, Mira seated safely with one of the guards, Rowan felt something settle in his chest. Not the weight of prophecy or expectation, but something simpler. Purpose. He'd started with one person. One desperate attempt to save someone who mattered. And now that same impulse had become a system. A network. A promise that no one would be left alone in their worst moment. Caelan rode beside him, silent but present. You know this won't be the last one, he said finally. There will always be someone who needs help. I know. Rowan looked at the signal stone in Mira's small hands, already going dark as the crisis passed. That's why we made so many. They rode through the gates as night fell, and the mountain wind carried the sound of wolves settling in for evening. Families gathering. Children playing. The ordinary sounds of a realm that was learning, slowly, how to be something other than afraid. Rowan dismounted and helped Mira down, watching as she ran to her grandfather's side where Eloan was already working. The old wolf's eyes opened, unfocused but alive. Mira burst into tears of relief. And Rowan turned away, giving them privacy, knowing he'd done what he came to do. Caelan was waiting, one hand extended. "Come on," he said quietly. "Let's go home." Rowan took his father's hand. Above them, the moon watched, ancient, knowing, patient. In the distance, another signal flickered to life. Someone, somewhere, needed help. And this time, they would not go unanswered. Thank you for staying until the end. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? If this story moved you, subscribe for more Alpha and Omega stories, and share it with someone who loves powerful pack lore.